Jeff?
All right, I'm recording. So, welcome everybody to Zoom Tuesday at the Capitol. Today is Tuesday, March 16th, and it's week 11, if you're keeping track of the legislative session. So, we gather, Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance and its citizen advocates gather on Zoom every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. To talk about what's happening at the legislature and to figure out and plot strategy on how we can make sure to protect services and supports for people with brain injury. It's been a fairly I don't know, uh, normal session and so far in terms of the process. All things considered, with policy bills moving forward, and everything is just maybe misspoke because everything is different with Zoom. But in terms of what their expectations were in terms of how bills would move forward. I think we're seeing the results of the pandemic and sort of the slowing down of the process. But where we are right now is we're in between the first committee deadline and the second committee deadline, and these are policy committee deadlines. And I know I've gone over this before, but just briefly to review, in order for your policy bills to stay alive, they have to meet certain deadlines to get through the process. The first deadline is they have to pass all relevant policy committees in at least one body. And by body, I mean either the Senate or the House. And by the second policy deadline, they have to turn around and clear all the policy committees in the other body. And so you can certainly do both bodies before the deadlines. As long as you get them done before the deadlines, you're okay. So last Friday, March 12th, was the first policy deadline, and next Friday, this coming Friday, March 19th, is the second policy deadline. And so last week was a really crazy week as bills were, and everybody was struggling trying to get their bills passed through the policy committees. Some bills made it, some bills didn't make it. And this week, it sort of flips, where everybody that made their first deadline in the Senate is now trying to make their second deadline in the House, and everybody that made first deadline in the House is trying to make second deadline in the Senate. I think I said that right. And so uh, I'll come back in a minute to what comes next. But just in terms of those policy deadlines, that's what we're in the middle of right now. And so some bills are alive, some bills are not. And the same thing is true with us. So I'll start with the good news. I'm happy to report that Cassie's Law cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee last Friday, the last day of the deadline. And so we met the first policy deadline for that bill. The transit drivers bill did not get a hearing, and I can't imagine Joy doing any more than she did to try to get a hearing. But that bill did not meet its deadline. So in all likelihood, it is as a standalone bill, it's dead for the year. So those are the two policy bills that we've been pushing. There's a lot of other sort of policy bills that have been winding their way through the Capitol that affect disability and healthcare. It's really, we don't have time, or I'm sure you guys don't have the energy to listen to me talk about all those bills. But a number of them have been moving forward. Some of them did, some of them didn't, and we'll see things kind of sort out in the next week or so. So then the next step then is for at least for the bill that met the deadline, Cassie's Law, is to get through the House. We've already gone through one committee in the House, but we have to go through two committees in the House. We have to go through the House Public Safety Committee, which we've already done, and we have to go through the House Judiciary Committee. In the Senate, the Public Safety and the Judiciary Committees are the same committee. So we only had one stop there. So we had one stop in the Senate, two stops in the House. And so we've already done one stop in the House. We made deadline in the Senate, and now we have a hearing coming up this Thursday. The hearing starts at 8:30 in the morning for you early risers out there, whether you're out shoveling snow or whatever Tim does. Tim takes his walk early in the morning. I will send that out in the email this afternoon, a link to that hearing if you'd like to watch it. It looks like right now, I believe we're about third on the agenda. Those things can change, and it's a pretty packed agenda for Thursday. And so if we clear that committee, then Cassie's Law will have met the second deadline, and the policy will be under consideration by the committees as we move forward in the process. Now, there's a lot of sort of technicalities between technical issues, whatever I'm trying to say, between, in the process in terms of which committee the bill moves. Does it go straight to finance? Does it go to Ways and Means? And if you have questions about that, we can talk about that a little bit. But essentially, we have a very viable bill, and we have an opportunity and perhaps a chance to get it passed. What we're waiting for, and what I want to talk about next, is the budget process, because just because your policy meets a deadline doesn't mean it's going to pass, because a lot of policies, in fact, most policies, end up costing money. And so you have to make it through the budget process too. And since I've already been talking for close to 5 minutes, I won't go into the whole budget process just yet, but I will say that the next step, which we will probably see maybe late this week, more than likely early next week, is for the House and the Senate to start by setting committee targets. And so they will determine how much money each of the committees get in terms of the budget process. And Minnesota's budget, as you heard me say many times, is a change-based budget. So if nothing happens and everything stays the same, we don't start from scratch and have to pass everything all over again every 2 years. You basically assume everything stays the same unless it's changed. And what these targets do, basically, they're change targets. And it will say, well, we expect human services will cost this much. Here's how much we want to spend. And so you'll either get a positive target or you'll get a negative target based on how much it will spend. And again, a big fight about whether it's a cut or not, because sometimes you're spending more money, but it's less than you're supposed to. So is that a cut? We'll play with that some other time. But the fact is there'll be a lot of politics and a lot of fighting over what to do with Minnesota's surplus. Should we cut taxes? Should we give the money back to business? Should we invest in the future? Should we address the inequities that the COVID-19 virus has placed on us? And that's what you're going to hear a lot about. But what it'll boil down to in terms of the process is how much are we going to spend in each committee? And are these committees going to get cut targets or spending targets? And in all likelihood, I think you'll probably see cut targets come out of the Senate, and either smaller cuts or possibly small increases come out of the House. The governor's proposing tax increases. Your guess is as good as mine on whether that's going to pass or not. The Senate Republican caucus, who run the Senate, are the majority, or the Republicans are the majority in the Senate, have made it very clear that they have no intention of supporting any tax increases. So it's probably unlikely that Minnesota will see a tax increase, not impossible. But the devil will be in the details in terms of how we're sorting out that money. So a long way of saying is we still have to figure out how to pay for Cassie's Law, because these neuropsychological evaluations do cost money. And we assured the counties that we're not going to pass an unfunded mandate where it doesn't cost the state any money, because the state just tells the counties to pay for it. So we told the counties that if we pass this bill, we will make sure that the state reimburses the counties for the cost of those neuropsychological examinations. And we're sort of fighting a little bit. Well, fighting is the wrong word. We're sort of discussing how many there are, how much they cost, is insurance cover them, does Medicaid cover them, how do we get these paid for? And so there's a lot more to figure out on that. So that's a long way of saying some things are alive, some things aren't, but nothing's ever, I don't want you to lose complete hope. Nothing's ever completely dead until the session is over. I've seen issues pop up at the last minute that I didn't think were going to come up. So there's still a chance, 1 in a million or whatever that chance is. Are you saying there's still a chance? Yes, there's still a chance that we could see something happening with this transit bill. There's still a chance we could see some other things happen. So we're going to keep looking for opportunities to move that issue forward. And remember, this is the first year of the session. So everything that is, this introduced, even if it's not alive, it's still there and it'll still be available to pick up next year. And so we're going to keep working on that. So anyways, that's a long way of saying some things have passed, some things haven't, some things are in good shape, some things aren't. Nothing that is dead is truly dead. And even if your bill is still alive, which we are with Cassie's Law, there's no assurance it's going to pass, because you still have to figure out how to pay for it. And there's still a lot of other things that could happen in the meantime. And not only that, we're going to be really starting to pay much closer attention to the state budget as the targets come up. And we want to make sure there aren't threats to the medical assistants. Do they want to delay the spend down increase that we've paid for? Well, we're not going to let that, we're doing everything we can and not let that happen. There's still some consideration and talk about cuts to the Traumatic Brain Injury Spinal Cord Injury Research Fund. I'll get into that in future updates. But that's where we are right now. And I'm going to stop recording and see what kind of questions we have. So thanks, everybody.